Morning, readers. Here we are, ready to read the next part of Tale of Despereaux. We're starting at chapter 24, which begins on page 125, if you have your book. If not, make sure you're comfy and ready to make that movie in your head. Chapter 24, a handful of cigarettes, a red tablecloth, and a hen. Again, reader, we must go backward before we can go forward. With that said, here begins a short history of the life and times of Maigre-Sow, a girl born in this world many years before the mouse Despereaux and the rat Chiroscuro. A girl born far from the castle, a girl named for her father's favorite prize-winning pig. Maigre-Sow was 6 years old when her mother, holding on to Mig's hand and staring directly into Mig's eyes, died. "Ma," said Mig. "Ma, couldn't you stay here with me?" "Oh," said her mother, "who is that? Who is that holding my hand?" "It's me, Ma, Maigre-Sow." "Oh, child, let me go." "But I want you to stay here," said Mig, wiping first at her runny nose and then at her runny eyes. "You want," said her mother. "Yes," said Mig, "I want." "Ah, child, and what does it matter what you are wanting?" said her mother. She squeezed Meg's hand once, twice, and then she died, leaving Meg alone with her father, who, on a market day in the spring, soon after his wife's death, sold his daughter into service for a handful of cigarettes, a red tablecloth, and a hen. Do you remember where we've heard about the red tablecloth before? Are you connecting it with another part of the book? "Papa," said Meg, when her father was walking away from her with the hen in his arms, the cigarette in his mouth, and a red tablecloth draped across his shoulders like a cape. "Go on, Meg. You belong to that man now." "But I don't want to, Papa," she said. "I want to go with you." And she took hold of the red tablecloth and tugged on it. "Lord, child," her father said, "and who is asking you what you want? Go on now." And he untangled her fingers from the cloth and turned her in the direction of the man who had bought her. Meg watched her father walk away, and the red tablecloth billowed out from behind him, and he left his daughter. And reader, as you already know, he did not look back, not even once. Can you imagine it? Can you imagine your father selling you for a tablecloth, a hen, and a handful of cigarettes? Close your eyes, please, and consider that just for a moment. Done? I hope that the hair on the back of your neck stood up as you thought of Meg's fate and how it would be if it were your own. Poor Meg, what will become of her? You must, frightened though you may be, read on and see for yourself. Reader, it is your duty. Chapter 25, A Vicious Circle. Maigre-Sow called the man who purchased her uncle, as he said she must, and also, as he said she must, Meg tended uncle's sheep, and cooked uncle's food, and scrubbed uncle's kettle. She did all of this without a word of thanks or praise from the man himself. Another unfortunate fact of life with uncle was that he very much liked giving Meg what he referred to as a good clout to the ear. In fairness to Uncle, it must be reported that he did always inquire whether or not Meg was interested in receiving the clout. Their daily exchanges went something like this. Uncle: I thought I told you to clean the kettle. Meg: I cleaned it. Uncle, I cleaned it good. Uncle: Oh, it's filthy. You'll have to be punished, won't you? Meg: Gore, Uncle, I cleaned the kettle. Uncle: Are you saying that I'm a liar, girl? Meg: No, Uncle. Uncle: Do ye want a good clout to the ear then? Meg: No, thank you, Uncle, I don't. Alas, Uncle seemed to be as entirely unconcerned with what Meg wanted as her mother and father had been. The discussed clout to the ear was always delivered, I'm afraid, with a great deal of enthusiasm on Uncle's part, and received with absolutely no enthusiasm at all on the part of Meg. These clouts were alarmingly frequent, and Uncle was scrupulously fair in paying attention to both the right side and the left side of Meg's sow. So it was that after a time, young Meg's ears came to resemble not so much as ears as pieces of cauliflower that stuck to each side of her head. And they became about as useful to her as pieces of cauliflower. That is to say, they all but ceased their functioning as ears. Words for Meg lost their sharp edges, and then they lost their edges altogether and became blurry, blankety things that she had a great deal of trouble making any sense out of. And the less Meg heard, the less she understood. And the less she understood, the more things she did wrong. And the more things she did wrong, the more clouts to the ear that she received, and the less that she heard. This is what is known as a vicious cycle. And Meg's sow was right in the center of it. Which is not, reader, where anyone wants to be. But then, as you know, what Meg's sow wanted had never been of much concern to anyone. Chapter 26, Royalty. When Meg turned 7 years old, there was no cake, no celebration, no singing, no present, no acknowledgement of her birthday at all, other than Meg saying, "Uncle, today I am 7 years old." And Uncle saying in return, "Did I ask ye how old you were today? Get out of my face before I give ye a good clout to the ear." A few hours after receiving her birthday clout to the ear, Meg was out in the field with Uncle's sheep when she saw something glittery and glowing on the horizon. She thought for the moment that it was the sun. But then she turned and saw that the sun was in the west, where it should be, sinking to join the earth. This thing that shone brightly was something else. Meg stood in the field and shaded her eyes with her left hand and watched the brilliant light draw closer and closer and closer until it revealed itself to be King Philip and his Queen Rosemary and their daughter, young Princess P. The royal family was surrounded by knights in shining armor and horses in shining armor. And atop of each royal member of the royal family's head there was a golden crown. And they were all, the king, the queen, and the princess, dressed in robes decorated with jewels and sequins that glittered and glowed and captured the light of the setting sun and reflected it back. Gore, breathed Meg. The Princess Pea was riding on a white horse that picked up its legs very high and set them down very daintily. The pea saw Meg standing and staring, and she raised her hand to her. "Hello!" the Princess Pea called out merrily. "Hello!" And she waved her hand again. But Meg did not wave back. Instead, she just stood and watched, open-mouthed, as the perfect, beautiful family passed her by. "Papa," called the princess to the king, "what is wrong with the girl? She will not wave to me." "Never mind," said the king. "It is of no consequence, my dear." "But I am a princess, and I waved to her. She should wave back." Meg, for her part, continued to stare, looking at the royal family had awakened some deep and slumbering need in her. It was as if a small candle had been lit in her interior, sparked to life by the brilliance of the king, the queen, and the princess. For the first time in her life, reader, Meg hoped. And hope is like love, a ridiculous, wonderful, powerful thing. Meg tried to name that strange emotion. She put a hand up to touch one of her aching ears and realized that the feeling she was experiencing, the hope bloomed inside of her, felt exactly the opposite of a good clout. She smiled and took her hand away from her ear. She waved to the princess. "Today is my birthday," called Meg. But the king, the queen, and the princess were by now too far away to hear her. "Today," shouted Meg, "I am 7 years old." Chapter 27, A Wish. That night, in a small, dark hut that she shared with Uncle and the sheep, Meg tried to speak of what she had seen. "Uncle," she said. "Eh?" "I saw some human stars today." "How's that?" "I saw them all glittery and glowing, and there was a little princess wearing her own crown and riding on a little white tippy-toed horse." "What are ye going on about?" said Uncle. "I saw a king and a queen and an itty-bitty princess," shouted Meg. "So?" shouted Uncle back. "I would like," said Meg shyly. "I wish to be one of them princesses." "Har!" laughed Uncle. "Har! A dumb, ugly old thing like you? You ain't even worth the enormous lot I paid for you. Don't I wish every night that I had back the good hen and that red tablecloth in place of you?" He did not wait for Meg to guess the answer to this question. "I do," he said. "I wish it every night. The tablecloth was the color of blood, and the hen could lay eggs like nobody's business." "I want to be a princess," said Meg. "I want to wear a crown." "A crown!" laughed Uncle. "She wants to wear a crown." He laughed harder and harder. He took the empty kettle and put it on top of his head. "Look at me," he said. "I am a king. See my crown. I'm a king just like I always wanted to be. I'm a king because I want to be one." He danced around the hut with the kettle on his head. He laughed until he cried, and then he stopped dancing and took the kettle from his head. And he looked at Meg and said, "Do ye want a good clout to the ear for such nonsense?" "No, thank you, Uncle," said Meg. But she got one anyway. "No, but look here," said Uncle, after the clout had been delivered. "We will talk no more of princesses. Besides, whoever asked you what you wanted in the world, girl?" And the answer to that question, reader, as you well know, is absolutely no one. Chapter 28, To the Castle. Years passed, and Meg spent them scrubbing the kettle and tending the sheep and cleaning the hut and collecting innumerable, uncountable, extremely painful clouts to the ear. In the evening, spring or winter, summer or fall, Meg stood in the field as the sun set, hoping that the royal family would pass by her again. Gor, I would like to see that little princess another time, wouldn't I? And her little pony, too, with his tippy-toe feet. This hope, this wish that she could see the princess again, was lodged deep in Meg's heart. Lodged firmly right next to it was the hope that she, Despereaux, would someday become a princess herself. The first of Meg's wishes was granted in a roundabout way when King Philip outlawed soup. The king's men were sent out to deliver the grim news and to collect from the people of the kingdom of Dor their kettles, their spoons, and their bowls. Reader, you know exactly how and why this law came to pass, so you would not be surprised as Uncle was when one Sunday a soldier of the king knocked on the door of the hut that Meg and Uncle and the sheep shared and announced that soup was against the law. "How's that?" said the uncle. "By order of King Philip," repeated the soldier. "I am sent here to tell you that soup has been outlawed in the kingdom of Dor. You will, by the order of the king, never again consume soup, nor will you think of it or talk about it. And I, as for one of the king's loyal servants, am here to take your spoons, your kettle, and your bowls." "But that can't be," said the uncle. "Nevertheless, it is." "What'll we eat? What'll we eat with?" "Cake with a fork," suggested the soldier. "And wouldn't that be lovely if we could afford to eat cake?" The soldier shrugged. "I am only doing my duty. Please hand over your spoons, your bowls, and your kettle." Uncle grabbed hold of his beard, let go of his beard, and grabbed the hair on his head. "Unbelievable!" he shouted. "I suppose next the king will be wanting my sheep and my girl, seeing as those are the only possessions I have left." "Do you own a girl?" said the soldier. "I do," said the uncle. "A worthless one, but still she is mine." "Ah," said the soldier, "that, I am afraid, is against law. Too, no human may own another one in the kingdom of Dor. But I paid for her fair and square with a good laying hen, a handful of cigarettes, and a blood-red tablecloth." "No matter," said the soldier. "It's against the law to own another. Now you will hand over to me, if you please, your spoons, your bowls, your kettle, and your girl. Or if you choose not to hand over those things, then you will come with me to be imprisoned in the castle dungeon. Which will it be?" And that is how Despereaux came to be sitting in the wagon full of soup-related items next to a soldier of the king. "Do you have parents?" said the soldier. "I will return them to you to them." "Eh? Ama!" shouted the soldier. "Dead," said Despereaux. "Your pa?" shouted the soldier. "I ain't seen him since he sold me." "Right. I'll take you to the castle then." "Gor! You want me to paddle?" "To the castle," shouted the soldier. "I'll take you to the castle." "The castle? Where the itty-bitty princess lives?" "That's right." "Gor," said Meg. "I am to be a princess too someday." "That's a fine dream," said the soldier, and he chuckled. He clucked to one of the horses and tapped the reins, and they took off. "I'm happy to be going," putting a hand up and gently touching one of her cauliflower ears. "Might just as well be happy, seeing as it doesn't make a difference to anyone but you if you're happy, if you are or not," said the soldier. "We will take you to the castle, and they will set you up fine. You no longer will be a slave. You will be a paid servant." "Eh?" said Meg. "You will be a servant," shouted the soldier, "not a slave." She was 12 years old. Her mother was dead. Her father had sold her. Her uncle, who wasn't her uncle at all, had clouded her until she was almost deaf. And she wanted more than anything in this world to be a little princess wearing a gold crown and riding a high-stepping white horse. Reader, do you think that is a terrible thing to hope when there is really no reason to hope at all? Shh. Or is it, as the soldier said about happiness, something that you might just as well do, since in the end it really makes no difference to anyone but you? That's where we're going to stop today. Tomorrow we'll pick up again with chapter 29. Hope you have a great day. Goodbye.